For this video, we're going to solve the problem 2 to the x minus 2 power is greater than the 1/2 to the x minus 3 power. So this inequality, notice it's an inequality, not an equation. This inequality would be super tough to solve without a calculator. Notice there's really no way we can get like bases. The exponents are, or the bases are different, so it would be hard to change into a log. So using our calculator would be really beneficial for solving this equation or inequality. So just like when we're solving an equality, we're going to start by putting both of these into our y equals in our calculator. So in the first y equals, I'm going to put the first equation 2 to the x minus 2 power, and in the other equation 0.5 to the x minus 3 power. Okay, so right now if I looked at the graph of these two equations, just go ahead and graph it, I can see there's the first one and there's the second one. So I know that they're equal right here where they intersect each other. Okay, but this problem is not asking us to find where they're equal. They're asking us to find when this curve, that's this positive one right here, when is it greater than or equal to this curve right here. If you notice, it's going to happen, okay, well it's equal to right here, so that's going to be our first part of our problem. And then it looks like it's going to be greater than the other line right here. See how this part of the equation is bigger than this part of the equation right here? Okay. Well, if it's not so obvious, there is a way that in our calculator we can make it a little more obvious. Okay, we're going to go back to our y equals, and we're going to let this shade. If you remember back in your previous classes when we graphed inequalities, we would shade less than or greater than. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. It's a little more complicated, but you can do it. So what I just did was I scooted over to the left to where this part is blinking, and I'm actually going to change this to tell it to shade. Okay, but I'm not sure if I want to tell it to shade above or below. So the trick to be figuring out to whether we should shade it above or below is to replace the other equation, the one that we're not on the same line as. Right now we're on the line 2x minus 2 to the x minus 2. Take the other equation and let's put a y right there. Let's just pretend that that's not an equation. Let's pretend that that's the y part of our equation. So if we read this now, this says y is less than or equal to 2 to the x minus 2. I'm kind of reading it backwards because the variable right here is on the right side, so I've got to read it backwards. So y is less than or equal to 2 to the x minus 2. So for a less than problem, I want to shade below it. So once I have that highlighted, I'm going to hit enter. That's not below. That's not below. Hit enter one more time. That's shading below. So I want to keep that there. Okay, let's do the same for the second equation. So this time we're going to pretend that the other equation is just the y. So if we look at it, it says y is greater than or equal to 0.5 to the x minus 3. So in my calculator, I want this to be shaded above since it's greater than. So I'm going to hit enter, not that one, enter again, that one is shaded greater than. Okay, so hit graph, there, that's shaded below the first one, above the second one, and our answer, the solution to this equation is going to be in this part where the two overlap. Okay, see that part right there? So I just need to figure out how I can write this as a solution. Well, first of all, I'd like to see where this overlap starts, which is right here where they intersect. So to find that x value where they intersect, I'm going to go to second, Calc, just trace button. Go to number 5. Hit enter. Okay, first curve, see my blinky thingy? It's right there. That looks good. If I'm not exactly sure what curve it's on, I can move it over, but I think it's on this first curve, 2 to the x minus 2. Hit enter. Second curve, look, there's my blinky thingy on the second curve, so hit enter. Guess, so I can move this down to be, I guess it's about right there. Hit enter again, and it tells us that our intersection happens at 2.5. Okay, so let's write that down. It looks like the two equations are equal at x equals 2.5. Now, we've got to figure out that that's 2.5. Let's look. It looks like it's shaded above that. So to write that solution, I should say x is greater than 2.5. And also, it's equal at 2.5. So this would be our solution to this really hard equation that I would have to do by hand. It's better to do it in the calculator.